Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Antony Demekhin, CEO and founder of Tuney. Thanks for joining us today. For our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please just give us a quick, small introduction before we get into it?
Sure. My name is Antony. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tuney. We're an ethical, artist-first generative music company. We take a very unique approach to generative music and AI, seeing it more as a tool for creativity and collaboration for artists versus as something that takes away or replaces artists. And I've been in the music business for over a decade now.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, I know I don't want to get into it yet. We will definitely in a minute, but artists desperately need tools. They don't want to be replaced, they need help. And platform like yours, I'm sure it's going to help a lot. Antony, could you please take us a bit back in your teenage early days? What influenced you? What drove or kind of initiated that love and passion to the music business and be in it and the music? Was it a band, family members, or please?
Sure. Yeah, I started when I was 6 years old at the Moscow Conservatory of Music. I grew up in Russia and my family moved to the States when I was 9. Then I
Hmm.
went to a creative and performing arts school and I was a classically trained percussionist, played a lot of classical music. Then I rebelled as a teenager and started playing jazz drums, and then moved into hip hop band, and then some pop punk bands, and then some metal dance, and I toured quite a bit earlier, um, but I ended up going to school and getting a liberal arts degree, so I didn't go to conservatory. I decided classical music as a profession wasn't for me, and I was fascinated by the music business. Napster came out when I was in college, and I was already thinking about working at a record label. And then when I graduated college, working at a record label was the worst idea you could possibly have. So I ended up working in advertising,
Why is
and
that?
well,
Yeah.
it was the music business was reeling from Napster and illegal downloading and piracy.
The
And
digital.
so, there wasn't any entry level jobs in the music business, which is why I ended up working in advertising as a creative adjacent field. And I wanted to work with creative people. I'm a creative person myself. And, you know, for about 5 or 6 years, I worked in advertising and then quickly made my way into music partnerships for brands. So this was kind of a way for me to um, blend those two worlds together. And
Yes.
over the years, I've helped massive brands like Coca-Cola and American Express take advantage of, the power of music and musical artists as a way to engage fans and build an emotional connection with consumers.
Mm.
Got really into music rights and licensing. I'm one of the few people that actually am fascinated by copyright law, and I think it's complicated, but it's very interesting to learn about. And that's kind of what led me here. My business partner Philip and I had a music production company. We were producing and composing the old-fashioned way for television and film and advertising. And I saw this wave of generative music coming, and I thought it was a great opportunity to build tools for artists and also creative people who are working with music who, don't have a decade to go to music school or learn how to use Pro Tools.
Amazing. So I guess it's fair to say, which you earned it. You pretty much really climbed the music ladder from the beginning. I say the old-fashioned way, from being a musician, actually, developed your love for music and being an artist yourself, and you played different instrument, different styles of music. Then you moved all the way up to advertising, where music and advertising definitely combine together. And from there to being an entrepreneur, which we're gonna dive into it right now. What sparked the idea? I know you gave me just a hint of it a minute ago or a second ago. The idea of creating Tuney, and how does it aim to simplify the music creation process for artists and creative teams who may lack maybe some of that, how should I say, that tech experience for working with complex softwares?
Yeah, great question. So I think when we were making music for customers, and we mainly worked with television companies and advertising agencies, we saw that
Yeah.
there was a lot of friction in customizing music. And so the idea was really sparked from that. We wanted to build an experience where you could almost custom compose a piece of music for a piece of film without having to have a composer involved. Not because we wanted to replace composers, but because at the time, with the explosion in media and demand for content, there was just a lot of projects that couldn't afford to have a composer or a music editor. And so that
Hmm.
part fell to the producer or the video editor, and these are not musical people. So we wanted to build simple tools for them to use. And we actually wanted to have a powerful music library behind that product so that we can both license the software and the music without them having to go to one place for music and another place for editing software. Um,
Hmm.
and what we did in the early days was we looked at all of the ways that you could use, you know, AI and algorithms and generative tech to make music, and we noticed that, you know, the MIDI method did not sound very good, and a lot of the STEM-based methods were not scalable enough. And so what we built was a hybrid engine that takes loops and samples and musical phrases created by humans and then assembles them into finished songs. So the engine has a very thorough understanding of music theory and
Hmm.
understands how songs are assembled and produced the same way a human would, which now, several years later, as there's leaps forward in the fully generative music generation and
Hmm.
transformer based models, even though those are sounding better and better, they don't give a lot of creative control. They also don't allow a human to input into them creatively beyond just a text input. And so, one of the things that we are trying to answer is the demand for a system that is kind of in between a fully automated system and what you do now with a Pro Tools or Ableton. So basically, a system that allows you to automate certain things, but still be in the captain's chair as the creative person involved with, with enough creative input and control over the experience.
Amazing. Well, Tuney is the place to be. It's like your own little studio, wherever you
Exactly.
are, on your laptop or desktop or your phone, even maybe, to create. So, Tuney focuses on both, on artists, singers to create their own music and be involved in the sound and the way that they want the song, and also producers, music composers. Am I right?
Yeah, we're focused right now primarily on vocalists, so people that don't have any other alternatives, so they can generate an instrumental, they can sing over it, they could also upload a song of theirs that they've already produced, and we'll actually replace the instrumental for them. There's a lot of rappers and singers who
Would you
create
replace it with
music
a newer
over beats
version?
that they don't own or things they might have downloaded from YouTube. And
Mhm.
we have a product called Beat Swap that allows them to create, um, a copyright safe instrumental. And it's also a great way to make unexpected vocal remixes. And then later this year, we'll start rolling out products that are more for producers and people who create instrumental music.
Amazing. A question. Now, for a producer or composer or an artist, they come into your tuning your platform, they create their own song on that. Do they own the full copyright of that composition?
What was that? Say that one more time.
Uh, yes. An artist come into your platform, they create their own song or their own instrumental or their own background music for them to sing on. Do they own 100% of the copyright of that composition that was created on your on Tuni?
So it depends on what the input was. If they upload their own IT, let's say
Yes.
a vocal
Yeah.
or part of a song that they made,
Yeah.
and we mix it with our content, then we
Yeah.
actually will split the ownership.
Got it.
And there's a specific reason for that. There are a lot of royalty-free AI music generators out there.
Yes.
They are training on a bunch of music. Maybe it's popular music they're not supposed to train on. Maybe
You're
it's something
saying
they have.
they don't have the license to it because now you have to
Right.
license. Yes, yes,
And some of them might, but in either case, the output is not the direct like IP or copyright music that someone made. Versus in our case, all of our material is created by human contributors. So we have
got
a
it,
library of loops and sounds that are created by humans, and that is kind of what is assembled into the tracks that Tuney generates. And so
Mm,
the reason why we split the ownership with the user is so that we can pay our contributors. You know, we kind of have our own profit
got it,
sharing scheme with all of the producers that input into our system. Um,
got it.
you know, the other thing that I think is super important is that we grant licenses to our users to use the content however they want, right? So as long as they're paying us a subscription, they can put it on Spotify, they can monetize it, they can do all the different things. In the case of distribution, we haven't added it yet, but later this year we'll be adding distribution. And when tracks are distributed through us, we will split the royalties with the user.
Are you going to have your own direct deals with DSPs, or are you going to do, like, let's say, a deal with one of the reputable aggregators, whether it's Believe or Fuga and one of those partners out there?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Oh, your distribution structure will be through one of the aggregated, reputable aggregators out there, like Believe Digital or Fuga or one of the other ones, or are you guys going to have your own direct DSP deals?
We are going to act as a distributor, and we do have a technology partner that gives us access to direct distribution in over 80 DSPs, streaming services. But we will be the de
Amazing.
facto distributor for all of the 2D generated content.
Beautiful. Could you share your journey from being a lifelong musician, which you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, the interview, to translating it to a role of entrepreneur within the music industry, and how has this shifted your influence, your approach, and innovation and creativity on your current ventures, like Tony?
Um, yeah, so my previous experience, I guess I learned the artist journey.
Yeah.
And then I learned how, you know, brands use music and how brands create media and
Yeah.
influence pop culture. And I learned a bit about tech in my brand experience too, because we used to build apps and websites for brands. So I kind of understand that process. So all of that's really helped me connect the dots between those three worlds. I think building a startup, the hard part is connecting disparate silos. And the music world speaks a different language than the tech world. And the tech world speaks a different language than the pop culture world. And in order to create a successful, you know, music product that helps artists be more creative with a lower learning curve, I think you need to understand both. And
Correct.
obviously, in order to scale that and make it successful and get eyes on it and get users, but we also need to understand how to promote that business, how to work with press, how to build partnerships with larger artists. For example, like we recently did an activation with Bacardi and Boy Wonder, where our technology was used to create a album that Boy Wonder curated with a bunch of artists. So obviously my
Mm.
experience working with brands kicked in there and helped out with projects like that. And it gives us more visibility and attracts more aspiring musicians to our platform.
Uh, can you hear me?
I can now.
Yes. Great. Um, can you provide insights on your experiences collaborating with some of the global brands that you worked with, such as Coca-Cola, American Express, Nintendo, to harness the influence of music in marketing campaign? And how did it impact your perspective on, insertions, music to branding?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of the core technology we built in the early days of Toonie was focused on creating music for branded content because we saw a big problem there. Now that also
Hmm.
happens to be the same tech that can power a music production experience for a musician. So that's kind of a nice way for us to use the same technology because at the end of the day, both people are doing the same thing. As far as working with brands and the way that they leverage music and promote music to, you know, to scale their message, I think,
Yeah,
um, mostly it's about the way that bigger companies collaborate with one another to, build kind of mutually beneficial attention. I think the one thing that it's taught me is like Coca-Cola, for example, are epic at marketing, like absolutely epic. It's just like a world-class marketing organization, which has taught me a lot. And the way that we work with brands now has also proven to us how many consumer creators there are out there looking for simple tools to express themselves.
hmm
Because
hmm
brands, a lot of times, are the early um, patrons, let's say, that invest in building cutting edge experiences to engage consumers. And
correct.
these days, I think one thing I'm really excited about for the next 5 to 10 years um, is that consumers are moving from a passive media consumption experience into a more active one, right? Like I think 10 years ago, you were shouted at across like all of the above the line traditional media, and then slowly social
Yes,
media started shouting at you too. I mean, most of these products are ad-based products. And I think now, as people start to gloss over that kind of flat one-way advertising and marketing, they expect for marketers to create experiences for them that are two-way, where you can actually engage and do something instead of just consuming marketing messages. And I'm really excited about that. And that's why we're focused on building creator tools that
yes,
are easier to use.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, can we talk about your role and you know, as a managing, Coca-Cola Global Music Initiatives, which is a pretty big role, and then your involvement as executive producing Sochi 2014 Olympic anthem and experience in shaping the approach in music and related to projects and collaborations.
Yeah, I mean that was a wild time. I worked with Coca-Cola's global team from 2011 to 2015, and I worked on music activations for the London Summer Olympics, for the Sochi Winter Olympics, for a FIFA World Cup, a handful of global campaigns. One of the things that was a big problem back then, which is almost like 10 years ago, is music rights that hadn't been figured out globally. There was just a lot of complications with working with global music rights. And there was also complications with doing global campaigns that had like a local component. So for Sochi, for example, I'm Russian and I speak Russian, so that helps. But Coca-Cola,
Yes,
headquartered in Atlanta, had to make a song for the Russian market to promote during the Sochi Winter Olympics. So, I got like the coolest
got it.
Russian rapper to do a verse on that song. I got like one of the biggest Russian pop stars to do it. We produced it with a team between Los
Yes,
Angeles and Moscow. Um, and kind of coordinated the whole thing. So, that experience sort of taught me about working at that level and solving a lot of problems that can happen when you have teams across different time zones and cultures. And that helps me in my business now because, a big part of our team is Polish. Our
hmm
CTO is a PhD in computer science, and he's headquartered in Warsaw, and he's built our whole tech team from the ground up
amazing.
across Poland. So it helps there.
Well, so Tuney, it's pretty much very global. So you have I mean, should I say your headquarter office there, or just part of it?
We're headquartered in LA, and but we,
Yeah,
we have like two firm feet on the ground in Poland as well.
wonderful, wonderful. You speak Polish, but you're
No,
multilingual, English, Russian.
I
Okay.
just speak English and Russian, and contrary to popular belief, Russian and Polish are not similar even a
No, they're
little
not.
bit.
No, no, no. Been to Warsaw a million times. They're
Yeah,
definitely not. No.
yeah.
Um, very interesting, my friend. Really are. You're pretty much well rounded. You should you should absolutely give speeches, or I would say lessons on how to get involved in the music business and where the music business is going. You mentioned something about music copyright a couple of times, and I think there is still a problem with music rights and copyright. Maybe we could talk about this in a minute. I mean, I don't think there's a solution for it, and the problem, I feel, it's been always shoved under the rug. And now with AI being involved and technology is rapidly moving you know, in a speed of light, I think there's certain issues that the music business has to kind of look into it more and find a solution. Would you agree?
Say that last part again.
Oh, about the in regards to the music copyright and rights, a problem been always been shoved under the rug. With technology moving at a fast pace right now, I think it would need to look at it again and see what could be done about it, solved.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
opinion?
absolutely. There's a lot going on right now in building technology that is kind of it's like the fight of good versus evil. There's a ton of technology being built that is challenging the copyright law and the monetization structures, the royalty collection mechanisms. Um, there's companies trying to fight streaming fraud, which is an increasing problem, and I think with AI generated content will only intensify. And there's also
Yeah.
a big question about how much copyright protection does AI generated content really receive? Now, Tuney,
Right.
um, you know, is kind of in an advantageous position there because we have the clear path to copyright protection because our technology assembles pre-existing human-made works. So there's always an author
Yes.
at the end of the process.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Where there
No.
is no author, there
Mm.
kind of is not any legal framework for protection. And as you know, the government moves a little slower than Silicon Valley does. But in the meantime, everything is a little bit on pause. Like people are moving slowly until those
Yeah.
kind of things are sorted out. And one thing I will say that
You there? A bit of technical difficulties, but that's normal. Anthony, we here
okay, I'm back.
doing our. Okay, great. Back to Soundbreaker. Uh, can we dive into the your experience of overseeing American Express digital music streaming platform? You know, Unstaged, and your collaboration, obviously, with prominent artists such as Kendrick Lamar and Disclosure, and how did these partnerships contribute, to shaping your perspective in the music and technology? But let's talk for a second about the American Express digital music streaming platform.
Yeah, so this was called Unstaged. We still have a version of
Yes.
it. And it was a live streaming concert series. So what we do is we produce and sponsor a large scale concert that would be simultaneously streamed live on YouTube with a
Wow.
celebrity director in the control room picking the camera angles and everything like that. And that was the first time that I worked with mega artist teams, like huge artist teams, Kendrick Lamar, Taylor Swift, we did an
Yeah.
activation with Beyonce's team, just to see the level at which those artist teams operate. I think one thing that I learned, it dispelled this myth. A lot of people say, oh, pop acts might be lucky, they might be privileged, they might be difficult to work with, but that was not my experience. I saw people who were so hardworking and dedicated, um, and I'm not surprised that any of those names, Disclosure, all those people that we worked with are at that level because outside of the talent and creative
Mhm.
capability, they were so dedicated and so hardworking and so collaborative. And it was really inspiring, actually. I mean, it's not very few people get
Mm.
access to those people and get to work with those teams at that level firsthand, and it was very inspiring for me. It's like going to the Olympics and the athlete village and being like, oh, that's what it takes. Okay, I get it now. Now I have to work 10 times as hard as I was before.
Absolutely. Nobody knows what goes on the other side.
Exactly.
Um, can you share your insights into the future direction of Tuney, please? And how do you
Yeah.
envisage the, yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the future. We're entering a time now where the demand for music making tools has never been higher, especially low barrier ones. And I think one thing we're a little contrarian about is like we know how music is produced the old-fashioned way,
Correct.
and so we kind of have some tricks up our sleeves about creating that experience for aspiring musicians and
Yes.
novices. I think you know that this industry has missed the mark a lot. The music maker apps that I see in the App Store, or some of the more lightweight things that I've seen, don't actually allow you to experience the feeling of making a song. Because a lot
Really?
of times it has to start with like a musical idea. You have to sing or play and then be able to build on that. And so, we have a long product roadmap to continue releasing products that make it feel like you're producing a song without having to learn how to use Pro Tools or Logic. And so I'm really excited about that. Um,
Amazing.
my mission is to get the next 100 million aspiring musicians to create and release their first song. And so that's what we'll be focused on for the foreseeable future, and I'm super stoked about it.
I like the message and the vision that Tooney has so far. What I'm reading is, hey, don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid of AI. Come AI, it's going to help you produce, going to help you create better music, give you better ideas. It's a tool. We're not here to replace you. We're here to hold your hand and help you to get you on the stage faster that way you want to be. Amazing. That's the message I feel that Tooney kind of presenting out there, because there's a lot of pushback and a lot of kind of a lot of people are scared. A lot of artists say, hey, I don't want to be replaced. No, I don't want to use AI. I want to use my own. But no, Toonie Camp said, hey, don't worry. Come in. We embrace it. We're going to embrace artist creation. We are with artist creation. We're not here to replace. We want to actually push forward to artists to create their own music, but we're going to help you. We're going to give you tools. Obviously, as we move forward, and technology grow, new tools to use for you to be able to enhance your ways of producing music.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think not all technology companies are coming with that banner. I think there are quite a few pieces of technology that are very much
Yes.
in the realm of
Yes.
like replacing what artists do. I just don't
Yeah, but
think,
that doesn't, it's not going to last.
yeah, I just don't think that that's very interesting to me as someone who's been making music my whole life. Um, there might be people over there who want to um, put in a search prompt and get a full finished piece of music that's kind of a generic version of Taylor Swift or Prince or Michael Jackson, but
Hmm.
that's just not something that we're interested in. I mean, we'd much rather give people simple tools that make them the creator and allow them to create music and have that same experience that we have when we make music. And so I'm really excited about
Absolutely.
that. And I do see kind of a good versus evil battle shaping up. And like I think that we're on the right side of it. And you know, I don't envy the guys on the wrong side of it.
Um,
Because I also think the music business is going to be behind us because the music business protects artists. And I think that
yes.
although I'm like a huge fan of technology and a huge fan of Silicon Valley and everything, all the innovation that they've brought, I think you don't want to underestimate the music business when it comes to protecting the value of copyright, protecting the interests of artists, because of how consolidated and aligned the global music industry is behind those
Yes,
missions.
yes. Well, you heard it first in Soundbreaker. Tuney here to protect the integrity of artists and music. The music industry is known for its challenges and setbacks. Can you share some of the challenges that you face, the difficulties, and in your career, and how did you overcome it?
I think right now the challenge is the music industry is very apprehensive about new technologies because there's still some trauma from the Napster days, and I think it'll take a little while
Hmm.
for the music industry to embrace any technology, regardless of how pro artist it is. So I think things are just moving a little slower than I'd like them to. Um, Previously in my career, I think I learned the hard way how difficult it might be to negotiate with people in the music industry and with songwriters and publishers and labels. Some of those negotiations are very smooth, and some of them are very challenging. And so it
Yes.
definitely taught me how to negotiate, how to be Switzerland, and how to figure out ways to negotiate win-win deals. I think, one of the double-edged swords in the music business is that it's so small. So on the one hand, it's small, and if you have the network, you can get cool stuff done, right? You can pick up the phone and move
Yeah.
things forward, and you feel like you're part of this very cool creative community. But the downside is
Hmm.
that when you start working on things that might step on somebody's toes, you're in such a crowded little room, that there's not really a lot of room to move. And so when people start working on things that are overlapping in a way, friends can turn enemies very quickly. And so that's always a challenging thing to navigate, but it's just the nature of working in an industry that's very small and tight knit.
Interesting. You just mentioned something. You said, the music industry or business is still kind of traumatized since the days of Napster when we went from physical to digital. And so, in your opinion, as a musician, as an artist, as a music entrepreneur involved in technology, and soon also to add a distribution tool to your platform, do you think what's the future hold for distribution? We've been on the digital trend for since when, should I say, quite a while. 2000, uh, 2002, I would say, 2001, 2002. So it's been a while. Do you think there's a change? Is there a new way distributing music, collecting royalties? Streaming been first it was the download, then that disappeared, and streaming came in. But that doesn't seem where artists make their money. It's more of a platform now to get yourself out there. But there's merchandising involved. There is live performance and many other things. And as brand, your music being inserted into brands, commercials, and all of that. But what do you think the next how should I say, the next phase or the next, not phase, wrong word of using, or the next step of say, hey, that's how music going to get distributed. Now we have the aggregators, we have direct deals, we have the DSPs. There's so many components. You think would that change? In your opinion, I wouldn't say you have a crystal ball in front of you, but as a man who's been through it all.
Yeah, I think it's just going to get more competitive, and I think if you think about the top of the funnel as all aspiring musicians who say, I might want to be an artist of some type, and the bottom of the funnel being Taylor Swift and Beyonce and Bruno Mars and those kind of artists, then the top of the funnel is just going to get a lot wider. So there will be tools like Tuney that will allow someone to make their first song as easy as possible, put it on Spotify. Spotify has experienced 500% of growth in terms of number of songs uploaded per day in the last 5 years, right? So fivefold the number of songs
Mm,
uploaded. That's because distribution is easier, and also marketing is easier with things like TikTok, with promoting your music on YouTube or other social platforms with building a social following and then converting it into fans. There's a lot of artists who started as content creators and then started putting music out. So it's just
Yes.
more
Correct.
competitive because there's
Yes.
more avenues for someone to make and promote their music. But I think once you get to the lower end of the funnel where you have the Beyoncés and Taylor Swifts, the old principles are going to become even more important. You're really hardworking, you're crazy prolific, like you're making great music regularly and putting it out regularly, and you have something unique to say. I think
Got it.
people underestimate the importance of uniqueness in art. The reason why art and culture is interesting to us is because it is a reflection of our experience on Earth right now, not yesterday, not 5 years, not 10 years. So, deep learning models like AI music generators training on all the music ever is going to create a
Mm.
watered down version of yesterday. And the stuff that we like, the reason why, even though there's tons of value in catalog, right, there's still frontline, there's still new artists. And the people who listen to the most music are the people with the most free time, which is teenagers and kids. They want artists who reflect
Yeah.
them, both in age and look, and the things they care about, and the things they sing about, and all that. So there will always be a need for a unique voice, and that voice will have something new to say. Now, depending on how snobby you are of a music fan, I'm like medium snobby. I have friends who are very snobby. You might say, oh, pop music, it's very formulaic. So you just take an 18-year-old pop singer, you run it through the
Mm.
Max Martin machine, and you get what you get. But at the same time, there's always new artists coming up with new things. And that's going
Correct.
to just be more important. When there was 100 new songs being released every day, you can be kind of unique. But when there's 100,000 new songs being released every day, you better be like a one of a kind, something that people go, wow,
Yes.
that is so new. I've never heard that before. And we are all becoming more and more desensitized, right?
Absolutely.
Our attention span is getting shorter, but media, we're just desensitized to media. You see so much media now that, you see an AI generated image now and you're not impressed because that happened 2 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
2 years ago, you were like, oh my God, it looks so realistic. Now
Yes.
you're like, that's an AI generated profile image and you move on. So I think artistry and uniqueness and having a unique voice is going to be really, really important. And then working super hard, leveraging all the technologies available, being super prolific. It's going to take superhuman strength to be a world-class artist. But at the same time, it's going to allow way more people to experience the magic of creating music and sharing music than ever before. So those are kind of
Mm.
the two worlds that I see emerging in the future.
Got it. So you're saying for now, the traditional way of distributing music, it will stay the same, whether it's do it yourself or through an aggregator or direct deal or through an independent,
I,
you
I
know.
think in the short term, what we'll see a lot more curation, and that because Spotify is not going to be able to handle a million songs a day being
Yes.
uploaded. So you already saw them do the change where they're not paying out on any song that has
Yes.
less than a
Nothing
thousand
less than 1,000 streams.
streams.
Yeah, streams.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and so things like that, they will continue to block illegal or fraudulent activity, so fraudulent streams and things like that. So they will continue to fine tune the system so that it is efficient and curated. Algorithmic playlists, are going to hopefully help discovery and help people discover new music. And then in 5 years, it's really hard to say what happens in 5 years because things move so fast. But I
Especially
personally
now.
think, yeah, I personally
Yes.
think that the music industry, the major music industry, will put pressure on streaming services to prioritize their music. And so I could
Yes.
see some kind of alternative platforms become more popular. For example, SoundCloud, like something that provides an alternative um, place
For
for
independent artists.
fans and
Yeah.
independent artists who are
Yeah.
outside of the major music system to
Yes.
interact with one another.
Yes. Yes. I think that's the future. You said it. They call them now super fans, and I think fans and artists, that's where really the new streaming way or the new streaming kind of new platforms going to be born, or new ways of dealing with that. As you said, there's a lot of restriction going through that funnel or that straw. So there will be alternatives, and that's, I think, the future. You nailed it. Absolutely correct. In your opinion, what's a common misconception about the music business?
Well, like I said, I think one common misconception is that famous artists get lucky or get discovered.
Yes.
Like someone's just walking down the street and bumps into them and goes, "Wow, like I gotta put you on TV." It's by the time you see them on TV, like even though a lot of these artists are young, they're in their early 20s, they've been doing that since they were, early teenagers.
Five
They were just um,
or less than that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I like for the longest time, I was like, when is Chris Brown going to turn 30? Like, this guy's just been, and the reason why I thought that is because when I learned about him, he was 15, so he's just been around for 15 years,
Yeah.
and,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and like, I think that's one misconception is people don't realize how much work it takes to be at that level and to make great records and tour and promote. And now you have to keep up with your social media following and manage a
Absolutely.
team. And so, one thing that I find fascinating that a lot of people don't know about how artists and managers make the magic happen is that you usually either have a very business oriented artist who has this vision for how they're going to run their career, or you have a creative person who really wants to be successful and they find a business person and then they go, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do because this is what I want and this is why you're here. And that kind of partnership usually catapults artists to be very successful because it's like they're co-founders in a
Yes.
company together. And so
Absolutely.
I find that fascinating. I don't think it's something that a lot of people know about how artists and managers work. I think people talk about record labels and this and that, but a record label is
Amazing.
not as
Um,
instrumental to an artist's career as a manager. The manager is really the CEO of the party.
hmm, got it. Good advice. A lot of our listeners and viewers of Soundbreakers, once they watch this episode and see it, they're going to be inspired by your journey, by your accomplishments, and everything that you went through all the way up to Tuney leads up to your recent success on this amazing platform. Any advice for people who wants to follow the same path or going to get inspired by your story and your journey in the music industry and say, hey, you know what? Look at what Anthony did. I could do it. Doesn't have to be the same way, just the path of carving your own path in the music industry. Any advice for our upcoming future CEOs and executives and talent in the music industry?
I think it might sound cliche, and I'm sure they've heard it before, but be very clear about what you want to do and why you want to do it. And it's important because no matter what you want to do, if you don't have a very clear why, then when it gets hard, you will disengage. And so some people say, I want to work in the music business because it sounds cool. That's a very like thin why. It's a very fragile why. You want to have a pretty strong why because some of these things to accomplish, some it might take 5 or 10 years of your life, and you'll have to say no to other things in order to make it happen. That's why I think a lot
Mhm.
of people don't get to their goals is they go, well, I don't want to sacrifice this, that, or the other thing. Like if you have a strong why and you know what you're going after, then you will have an easier time determining what you're willing to give. Because you can't get without giving. Like people don't understand that. You even
Yeah.
give when you think you don't give. Like when you decide not to do certain things, you are giving something. When you
Uh,
decide to watch Netflix for an entire weekend, you just gave, you know, 20 working hours to Netflix, basically. So, yeah, I think having
Absolutely.
clarity around what you want to do and why you want to do it, and then clarity around what you're willing to sacrifice to get it, is really important. And
Yes.
then I think the other thing, which Gary Vee talks about a lot, we live in an age where you can get to pretty much anyone. I mean,
Yes.
I've come up to like I came up to
True.
Will I Am on the street and like talked to him about Tuney once. And I've bum rushed people in the music industry with no regard, and they usually respond because if you have a clear why and you know what you're doing and you have a good reason for talking to them, um,
Yes.
you end up being in like a very small group of people. Like they don't get hit up as much as you think they do, especially not with people by people who are working on something relevant to them, right? So I would
Absolutely.
just say don't be shy about connecting with people and reaching out to people for help, and do it often.
Yes. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Always. Absolutely. Amazing. Anything you want to advertise or mention to our listeners, viewers, your fans, your followers, also about Tuney? Is that something you're going to be releasing in the next month or two or 6 months that's coming out on Tuney to look for?
Uh, I I urge all of your listeners and viewers to go to Tuney.io and try Beat Swap, and then look out for more product releases later this summer, which we'll be doing a lot of promotion around.
Amazing. Great. You heard it. Tuney.oi,
IO,
correct?
IO.
IO. I'm sorry. Okay. IO. Tuney.io. Okay. Well, firstly, thank you for joining us today. And this concludes our episodes of Soundbreaker. And yes, love the hat, Tuney.io. I love it. I want one. And obviously, for our listeners and fans, please go to Tuney.io. If they I don't know if they have a merchandising section or not, but definitely the hat looks cool. I love it. And this concludes our
We'll get
episode
you
for
one.
today. Please follow us on socials and stay tuned. Yes, please. You heard it all. He promised to get me one. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for our new episodes. See you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bob.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.